there, everyone. How you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going into Entitled People, where there are a bunch of people who are very entitled. If you enjoy, remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and all that wonderful stuff. Now, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? A woman in a supermarket tried to eject me from and take my wheelchair. So there I was, in a rural Shaw's. For those not in an area with a Shaw's, it's a standard supermarket with a club that makes things quote-unquote cheaper, which is their way of hiding the markup. The stuff is cheaper a few miles down the road. Unfortunately, there were a few things I could only get there, like my flavor of caffeine, and food for the dogs. I was using my power chair, which back then I needed more often. It's an Eagle HD foldable deal, and it works great. I had been hit pretty hard by post-COVID and was very sedentary at the time of my life, along with a pre-existing joint problem. So I'm leaning forward to get a flat of Monster and stick it under my seat on the rack when a woman pushes on my back and says, "I need that. You don't. You're younger." As I was belted in, nothing happened. It was only luck that I was belted in. Usually I would have undone it to pick something up heavy. I sat up and pushed her hands off of me, saying, "What the frog, lady?" And she shakes the back of my chair like it's a dinner chair or something and goes, "You can use the scooter. My chair is better, and I'm old." She points at the shitty supermarket scooter she's using. I stare at her in total shock for a moment and say, "This is my wheelchair. Get away from me." "You can't use personal stuff in supermarkets. Give me the chair." She started shaking it with each statement. So at that point, I just hit the maximum speed on my power chair and took off, ripping it out of her hands. It was either let go or be dragged on her face, because she clearly wasn't super steady and needed a scooter herself. And we're off on the dumbest chase in creation, mostly because supermarket scooters go slower than any other mobility device. I buzzed on over to the service desk and cut the line and said, I'm really sorry, but there's this woman following me and trying to push me out of my chair and take it." And from behind me they can hear, "Get back here," in the most wheezy buzz of the slow scooter. In the moment, it was really enraging that she was being so entitled and frustrating, and I just wanted to get my dog food and leave. But in memory, it was the funniest shit I've ever seen. They let me into the back office area, and they and the whole line of people waiting just sort of watched as she came over. And it took so long. The scooter was so slow, and she's yelling about how I don't need the chair, and how she should get it because she's older and more disabled. It takes a full 20 seconds for her to get from one end of the store to the other, and everyone's just staring as she rides full glory at a very slow pace, with her face red and her glasses hanging off one ear. So she finally gets to the desk, and they calmly explain that the wheelchair isn't store property, and if she tries to steal the wheelchair from another customer, they'll have to call the police. She starts shouting at the employees that she knows full well you can't bring personal equipment into the supermarket, so they're lying. And the other woman behind the counter says, with a bit more attitude, "Lady, why do you think we care if you bring a wheelchair into the supermarket?" At this point, I think something either clicked or she just realized that an entire line of people were staring at her. And not kindly, mind you. She suddenly asked where to find the artichokes. I almost coughed on my own spit. The worker just stared back and pointed back where the woman had just come and said, "Produce?" And then the woman left. I admit, for the rest of my visit, I avoided any aisle she was in because I didn't want her close enough to grab me again. but now I can laugh about it for the absurdist comedy moment it was. In retrospect, I feel like there's a reason here, like her husband told her. They shouldn't buy a thing like that because they're not allowed in the supermarket. That's the best answer I can possibly come up with for that wild nonsense. Wherever you are, crazy lady, I hope you bought your own Eagle HD. On to the next story, which is actually from your narrator's own experiences. Wahoo! So I was going with my brother and grandmother to the store, and I had to watch my brother because he is severely developmentally disabled, to say the least. So I was watching him in the car in the handicap spot because my grandmother has handicap access. Halfway through her trip inside, a lady and her husband, I don't mean to sound rude saying this, but the husband had a literal dent in his head, like you would see in a TV show, but that just, yeah. The lady's like, "Hey, can you move? You're not disabled." Mind you, I actually am disabled, but she doesn't know that because they don't care about invisible disabilities. I tell her, if you look at the back license plate, you'll see that it's a handicap plate. She goes and looks, and she says she didn't see it, so I have to move. I'm like, it is there, and please leave me alone. My grandmother's the one that parked. Do not get her angry. She will roast you a new one, because my grandmother's full of fire. Like, do not get on her bad side. She is terrifying. And then the lady just went on ranting. I'm like, okay, how is this? Go inside, have them call on the loudspeaker for a woman called, let's call her Cheryl. It's not my grandmother's actual name, but anyway. They called Cheryl over, and she came out. And then the lady started backtracking because she could obviously see my grandmother was disabled. But then, after backtracking a little bit, she decided, you know what? Fuck it, let's double down. And then she's like, my husband's more disabled than you. I mean, look at him. We deserve the handicap parking more. And then my grandmother just stared at her like, you do realize that's not how handicap parking works, right? And the lady just walked away after that, after a few more words that I don't quite remember. But it was just so absurd. I have a few more personal experiences with entitled people, but they won't be in this video. Stick around if you want to see them, though. I mean here. See and hear, because I have text in the video and audio in your ears. Anyway, on to the next story. Entitled Karen felt entitled to my engagement ring. So this happened a few months ago. I was doing my normal monthly grocery shopping at Walmart. I'm in the meat section getting what my family needs and will use for the month. I am terminally ill, so my weight fluctuates a decent bit. My fingers swell and shrink depending on what kind of day I'm having. At this moment, my hands were as small as they'd ever get. While putting a roast in my cart, my ring slips off and clangs its way to the bottom of the cart and onto the floor, where it bounced a couple of times. Cue the entitled Ken. This man looks at me directly in the eyes, picks it up, and puts it in his pocket. I was shell-shocked and froze. I mumbled a quiet thanks and can I have my ring back? He makes no move to give my ring back until an employee makes it known that she has seen the whole fiasco happen and would be calling the cops if he didn't hand it over. He mumbled something like, I found it on the ground. It's mine. He immediately handed over to me, despite his protests. Like, what in the legitimate hell made him decide that he could just take my ring? They dropped her off at my house. Also, it's a rant of the OP. 4 days ago, I made my account and contemplated asking if I was the asshole for something. My half-sister had called me crying, saying our mother kicked her out, and she really needs her sister. I hung up the first time, and when she kept calling and texting, I told her we're not actually sisters, and I wasn't driving 6 hours to pick her up, nor letting her stay with me. I've been getting non-stop texts and calls from my maternal family since then. My maternal grandmother, the only person I stayed in any contact with, pretty much begged me to be a good sister and let my sister stay with me. She told the sister, I have my own house, gave her my number, and so on. I've blocked my grandmother and everyone else saying that I should be understanding because we've both been abandoned by our mother. It isn't the same. I've told my grandmother this, but no one seems to be willing to acknowledge that. For context, my sister and I are exactly 9 months apart in age. She's the product of an affair, and my dad stayed with my biological mother until I was 5 and told him she kept bringing a man around when he wasn't home. Her affair partner and half-sister's biological dad. Dad divorced biological mother and gave her the house in exchange for removing his name from the birth certificate. Biological mom lost custody of me when I was 8 after abandoning me because affair partner didn't want to bring a child that wasn't his family to gatherings. Dad tried to keep it civil so I could have a relationship with half-sister, but she was like a mini affair partner and never viewed me as a sister. I didn't like being around her, so my dad never forced me to. Birth mother, affair partner, and half-sister moved not long after this. Biological mother had been in childcare and lost her job because no one wants to hire you to watch their kids when you abandon yours in the middle of the night. I haven't seen half-sister in 17 years. I didn't know what she looked like until I came home today. She was sitting on my porch with a suitcase and a car. I think my grandmother's. Pulled out as soon as I parked. I didn't get out of the car. I was too angry to even move, and I'm still angry now. She kept saying she needs me and started crying, telling me that our mom was awful. Her dad cut contact, and biological's mom's partner doesn't want her in his house. I live next door to my dad, so when half-sister started knocking on my car window after I just stared at her, I called him and told him what was going on and asked what I should do. My dad told me to stay in my car and call the cops, say I had a trespasser, which I did. I didn't get out until the cops came, and when they did, half-sister told them I agreed to let her stay, and now I'm leaving her homeless. I just showed them the texts, specifically the only text I gave in response to everyone demanding I let her stay. No to you can have the space. No to she's your sister. No to can she please stay with you. Nothing but refusals before I blocked people. When half-sister kept saying we're sisters, I told the cops I haven't seen this woman in 17 years. I don't know her. I didn't even know what she looked like anymore. We're not family beyond sharing an egg donor. I went as far as unblocking my grandmother and calling her. I didn't even get to speak, but she said/yelled, "Look, OP, I love you, but you need to get over this. She's family and she needs you, and I've told your father you'd go to hell if he raised you to be so damn selfish. And you definitely will, because she's going through the same thing you went through." She hung up right after, and I told the cops they can just book HS or drop her at a shelter. I don't care. I just want her off my property. They told her, and now I'm sitting on my dad's couch, wondering what the hell just happened. He doesn't want me staying alone right now, in case they show back up. I am so pissed right now. I don't get it. 17 years of no contact. I only speak to my grandmother on holidays. I don't know most of the aunts and uncles and cousins that blew up my phone, but because biological mother pushed me out, I have to do what they tell me to. I'm 25 years old, and I've only had my dad and paternal family for years. BM and her family haven't done crap for me. None of them even know when my damn birthday is, because even my grandmother texted me on the wrong day. Not even a phone call. If half-sister needs help so badly, one of you should help her. I don't know her. I don't know any of you either. I'm not letting an entire stranger into my house. And 6 hours is too far to visit when I had surgery. But not too far to try and force me to do something? There are 3 updates to this story. The first one goes like this. I checked the camera footage from last night and this morning. Half-sister and biological mother's mother had been looking under mats, rocks, and potted plants, the mailbox, and checking the doors. They were probably looking for a spare key. I don't keep one on my property, and my dad, grandma, and grandpa have the keys they keep with theirs. My uncle did an overhaul of mine and dad's cameras. We now have ones that send notifications to our phones when motion is detected. We also got Ring doorbells for the front and back doors. There are other features, and all the cameras are better hidden as well. I went to the police department while he was doing this and brought my grandpa with me. Half-sister was booked for trespassing, but not held very long since biological mothers picked her up from the station. They stuck to the lie of me offering half-sister a place to stay and gave statements. Not sure how that's gonna go, but I'm taking steps to protect myself, my property, and my dad and his property. Half-sister doesn't have a record beyond this, so this was her first offense. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. It sounds awful, but I would hope she would at least have one prior because commenters make it seem like that would make the outcome a permanent restraining order and favorable. Biological mother's mother does have a record, though. Harassment, trespassing, and domestic violence, and I shared this with the police as well. Either way, I was able to get a temporary restraining order today, so there's that. I gave the camera footage to the police alongside the copies of the texts, printed out and on USB. I gave a statement, and they called a judge to get the temporary restraining order issued. I talked with them about other things like self-defense recommendations, overhauling my security system, getting a gun for protection, and so on. I was really anxious and just kept talking because it finally hit me that these people know where I live and they're willing to make the 6-hour trip to harass me and get inside my home. The texts and voice messages haven't stopped. They are direct and indirect threats. Biological mother's mother is adamant that since I have an entire house to myself, a stable job, and no children, I will be housing half-sister, or she'd give me the ass-whooping my dad should have, in her words. Half-sister has only left one voice message about coming over later today, and that she's staying with me because that's what blood does. They help. When there was no response, she sent multiple texts telling me that I need to be more understanding, that she's in a tough spot, and that she's moving in for at least a week until she's able to support herself. It's 7 days to gain tenancy here, so she's probably messing with the law on that point. Additional clarification for people asking about the age gap. I'm a February 1st baby. Half-sister is a November 29th baby. I say exactly 9 months because I'm not counting the weeks and days. Just felt that people knowing we're the same age was relevant and gave context to why I have no relationship with her. I don't know if she was premature. I never asked, to be honest. And there are people saying that they have similar gaps around them, so I have nothing to add. Multiple people also asked if I hate half-sister, and that I sound resentful for things she said as a child, and that things my parents did. In my first post, I talked to someone in the comments, and I admitted that had this a few years earlier, I may have helped half-sister without much thought. I know as children she was just parroting her parents. I don't fault her for that, nor do I blame her for biological mother abandoning me. But it's been 17 years. We've been legal adults for 7 of those years. She could have reached out at any point, but didn't, and said that she had no sister. I also could have reached out at any point, but also didn't. I just moved on with my life. I was in therapy since I was abandoned, and it took me years to move on, from no one on that side actually wanting me. Now she's making herself a problem. Biological mother's mother aside, half-sister was sitting on my porch with a suitcase, ready to force herself into my home and life. She allowed herself to be driven 6 hours to my home, sat on my porch for half an hour, and then lied to the police, all after I said no multiple times. She never claimed me until she needed something, and now she's forcing herself into my life on the basis of being family. I don't hate her, that's too much energy, but I do resent her now alongside her grandmother and the rest of the family. I was ignored for years, and now I feel unsafe in my home just because half-sister and those around her can't take no for an answer. This isn't about biological mother's affair. This is about half-sister and her family ruining my safe space, my home with their crap. The past is a factor in that resentment now because, again, I haven't spoken to her in 17 years. I didn't know what she looked like, but suddenly we're sisters because she needs someplace to stay. I definitely resent that. Also, I feel validated in my choices, posting to Reddit, asking for and taking advice, listening to my dad. The attorney I spoke to pretty much said all the same things commenters have. Unblocking and muting to get evidence of harassment, calling the cops and showing them the messages because it proves there was no implied invitation. This is apparently the biggest thing I had to worry about because even letting half-sister stay on my porch could have worked against me. Giving the cops the camera footage of half-sister and biological mother's mother looking for a spare key was also a good move. Even going about upgrading security, getting self-defense items, and asking the officers about a self-defense recommendation, and my wish to get a gun for protection works in my favor. It shows that even though this was half-sister's first offense, I don't feel safe, and she's a major cause of that, and I don't. So thank you again for all the advice. If they show up like they said, I'm going to set off my security system and call the cops. We got another update here. Affair partner cut contact off with half-sister when she was 20. She covered biological mother's affair with the rando. Affair partner stopped paying her tuition and cut her off financially. Half-sister's work history is non-existent, and she was kicked out by biological mother a month ago because she was sleeping with rando and one of his sons. Said son turned 18 2 months ago. Half-sister came home to hers and rando's things on the curb, and all the locks changed. The police weren't involved. The cousin doesn't know if biological mom told the boy's mother, but she did tell the entire family. Essentially said, protect your kids and your marriage. Half-sister claims she only slept with him on his birthday, but biological mother claims he was a minor when half-sister slept with him. The family is adamant about her getting somewhere safe to stay long-term because half-sister is pregnant. No one likes her, but believes abandoning her is wrong due to her pregnancy. The cousin expresses doubt about the pregnancy. Half-sister showed GM a positive pregnancy test, but no one else has been given any proof, and half-sister has a history of lying. Half-sister's couch surfed with those who didn't have kids. So far, she's borrowed someone's car without permission, taken expensive items to pawn, taken money meant for interview clothes and travel, and then blew it on expensive mom and baby outfits. When cops are involved, she lies, and has gotten someone arrested by claiming sexual assault when they tried to have her removed from their property. The plot to get half-sister into my house was the idea of an uncle, one of GM's 3 sons. GM apparently brags and complains about me being young with no kids, a well-paid job, and a house I own. Especially this uncle said I had no responsibility, disposable income, and plenty of room. Because no one wants to outright abandon HS, this was their quote-unquote best plan. The cousin don't give an inch, not even a ride to shelter. Someone tried, and she caused a scene and nearly got them arrested because she kept lying about the situation. Please read this. I read your 2 posts. Stay safe. And there's one more update. I got an update from my cousin and half-sister and the situation with her stepbrother. First off, half-sister was arrested after stealing her grandmother's car and credit cards. When she was booked, she apparently made it known she was pregnant, but then refused to do a pregnancy test. State laws mean they couldn't force her to. Our cousin says that her period came on when in jail, and she claimed it was a miscarriage. It wasn't. She eventually admitted that her grandmother told her to claim pregnancy because that was the only way anyone would want to help her. It worked for a time, but her antics made everyone stop beyond trying to push her onto me. She's claiming she had a mental breakdown and that's why she stole the car and so on. Next, the stepbrother Concerned Cousin did involve Child Protective Services, mainly for the younger of the two stepbrothers, since the eldest is 18 already. Both of us were worried half-sister had been involved with him in some capacity too. Their mother was also worried when she got the full extent of what was going on. She had filed her own report and told Concerned Cousin about it when they reached out, after the older stepbrother had a tirade online, essentially saying he was legal and slept with his half-sister because he wanted to. It hadn't been a one-time thing either. He and her slept together multiple times, but he's adamant that it was only when he was legal and never before. The younger of the two revealed that half-sisters offered to sleep with him too, but emphasized the when you're legal part to him every time she brought it up. She was grooming them, at least that's what I feel like she was doing. He described conversations that made him uncomfortable, like asking him about girls he liked, constantly complimenting his looks, bringing up his age and maturity, and so on. Unlike his brother, he never got comfortable with her, but also never said anything because this isn't the first time he's dealt with a creepy older woman. Both stepbrothers are in therapy, solo and family, and their father has lost custody entirely. Hopefully both of them get the aid they need. I feel disgusted by what I learned, especially because the younger one opened up about actually having told his mother about his discomforts, and he wasn't taken seriously by her. My maternal grandmother was also arrested this morning alongside her son, the one that gave her the ideas of taking in my half-sister. Both came by my house trying to plead a case for me to pay my half-sister's bail because they can't afford it. The police were called and they were both arrested. Maternal grandmother was in direct violation of the restraining order, so hopefully I won't be seeing or hearing from her ever again after this. Good on you, OP. I hope you all enjoyed the stories I had for you today. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Maybe leave a story with your own entitled people situations. Also, I have a playlist with plenty of Reddit stories, and I also have another playlist with plenty of horror stories. If you enjoy those, check it out. I will see you next time. Hasta la pasta.